What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest edition of the Stephen A. Smith Show, coming at you as I love to do every weekday over the airwaves of ESPN Radio, ESPN News, 250-plus markets across the United States of America. Check your AM, FM listing nearest you, plus ESPN Radio on Sirius XM, Channel 80, plus ESPN Radio simulcast over the live national television airwaves of ESPN News. Number to call up, as always, is 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. By the way, ESPN Radio is presented by Progressive Insurance. Drivers who switch and save pay an average of $699 less per year. Time for Straight Talk, brought to you by Straight Talk Wireless. Lots of stuff to get into today. Antonio Brown, more news. Clapping back at Big Ben Roethlisberger. We'll get into all of that. Definitely got to talk about that. Of course, more fallout from the whole Andrew Luck thing. As the season approaches, we're going to be taking a look at the NFL season and some of your predictions, some of your projections. Talk a little college football as well, because that's starting in just 3 days. I mean, it started last week with Miami and Florida, but, I mean, Alabama plays. Clemson plays. Oklahoma plays. Georgia plays, stuff like that. So we'll get into that a little bit later. I'm going to get in a little bit of Michigan stuff as well about Jim Harbaugh. Plus, I'm going to touch on an injury to the Crimson Tide, Alabama, that some believe may very well end up costing them a national championship this year. We'll get into all of that. But I'm going to start off with a little basketball talk because I want to say this. Kobe Bryant made news. The great Kobe Bryant, the future Hall of Fame, first ballot Hall of Famer, that is Kobe Bryant, one of the greatest players to have ever blessed us with this game. His game putting his greatness on display, that Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was interviewed and spoke about Shaquille O'Neal. And obviously, if you were listening to him, it was not very, very flattering. He and Shaq had won 3 titles together. Despite it, the two had become foes and the complicated relationship had forged. Just reading from one of the articles here. Bryant was recently in Las Vegas for the 10th annual PHP Agency Convention. And he got to be interviewed by Patrick Bet-David. At one point, Bryant was asked about Shaq's work ethic and whether or not he went hard in the gym. As Bryant explained, he's told Shaq numerous times that he's, quote unquote, a lazy ass, end quote. Although he was quick to give him some high praise as well. According to Kobe Bryant, he'd be the greatest of all time. The greatest of all time. Bryant said when speaking on how Shaq would have been had he gone to the gym. Kobe, he'd be the first to tell you that. I wish he was in the gym. I would have had 12 effing rings, end quote. Let me come to Kobe's defense in this regard. He has said nothing in that interview that he hasn't said on numerous occasions, including to Shaq's face. Kobe Bryant didn't say anything behind Shaq's back. He wasn't phony. He wasn't fake. He was as real and as candid and as authentic as you know him to be. If you know Kobe Bryant, there is nothing surprising about what he said. He's told Shaq that to his face. He said it behind his back. He said it in public. He said it in private. He said it to Hall of Famers. He said it to scrubs. It don't matter. Kobe Bryant has always said that about Shaquille O'Neal. Those of us close to Shaquille O'Neal, who love Shaquille O'Neal like a brother, we all know what Kobe has had to say and couldn't say a damn thing against it. Because it is absolutely true that there have been times, or there were times in the past, when Kobe Bryant would be on the court working his tail off for hours upon hours at a time, improving upon his game. There have been times when Kobe Bryant spoke to Shaq directly and was like, let's do this, big fella, let's get it going. and then would go in the training room and see Shaq swallowing about 3 Big Macs. It's absolutely true. Absolutely true. There's no denying it. There's no denying it. But here's why I think if the question was being asked like it was fair or foul, the only issue I had with Kobe Bryant saying what he said is that to bring it up now in the fashion that he brought it up, you knew Shaq was going to clap back because you knew that Shaq was offended, no matter what Shaq says. Because Shaq would be the first to tell you, ain't no lazy dude winning 4 rings, which Shaq has done in his illustrious career. Ain't no lazy dude as dominant as I was. Ain't no lazy dude going to be considered outside of Wilt Chamberlain the most dominant force to have ever graced the floor of basketball. Shaq will also tell you, as he said on Instagram in this clap back at Kobe, we would have won more championships if you passed the damn ball in the Detroit series, which was true. Because back then, the heat between Shaq and Kobe, ladies and gentlemen, I will never divulge that stuff without the permission of both players. I would never do that to them because both of them are win once upon a time. I mean, it was bad. It was really, really, really bad. And when Shaq sits up there and says that Kobe didn't want to give him the ball during the final series that they lost the 5 games to the Detroit Pistons, I'll be damned if he's lying. He's absolutely right. The hatred, the fuel had elevated to such proportions that it actually affected their play together on the court in that final series. There is no doubt about it. There is no doubt about it. I can tell you one time, just so y'all know, because you're looking at Big Shaq, 7'1", 350 pounds, and here was the crazy part about Kobe. Most people would be scared of somebody that size, that ferocious, that powerful. Kobe was not scared of Shaq at all. I came on the air one time with y'all years ago when I was on ESPN 710 LA, just to show the local show. And I said, yo, relationship basically was over before it started because Shaq slapped the hell out of Kobe Bryant at a gym. I think it was at a Loyola Marymount, if I can remember correctly, in the summertime before Kobe's career with the Lakers even started. He was a rookie that was just drafted. That's what I had said at the time. And Kobe called me and was like, he tried to slap me. He missed. He never slapped me. Get that straight. That's what he said years ago. And from the moment that Shaq tried to put his hands on him, it was never the same. So much so that years later, when they were teammates and they were winning championships, and people were talking about Kobe shooting the basketball too much and not being a team player and being a bit selfish, if I remember correctly. I think that was the issue. Even though I can't tell you specifically what the issue was when Kobe did what I'm about to tell you, let me tell you what Kobe Bryant did, because I'm trying to give you some insight into who the hell he is. He ain't no fake, fluff, phony kind of dude now. He ain't the 7'1" Shaq. Arguably the most powerful man we've seen in the sport in the modern era. But when it comes to heart and complete fearlessness, that some would argue are towards suicide proportions when you're talking about going up against Shaquille O'Neal, let me assure you, Kobe Bryant was not scared at all. Damn it, sometimes it's almost like he wanted to get into a fist fight with Shaq. And so I forgot what the incident was. Kobe Bryant grabbed the newspaper article and went to each locker in front of everybody, called every one of his teammates an MFer, and said, you said this MFer? Show the article. You said this MFer? You said this MFer? Went to each locker stall, including Shaq's. That's Kobe Bryant. Ain't scared of nothing. That's who he is. That's who he was as a player. So understand, I'm not telling you, Kobe didn't say anything. He didn't say anything that he hasn't said to Shaq's face. He didn't say anything that misrepresents what his position has always been. It is completely and totally consistent. But I still think it was a little foul. And the only reason I think it was a little foul is because you and Shaq sat down. You discussed it. You discussed your careers. Phenomenal interview with the two of you on NBA TV, with y'all talking to one another one-on-one, no intermediary, just going back and forth, et cetera, each missing the positives and each admitting, rather, the positives and some flaws about the other or about each other. And all of that was supposed to be squashed. Now, to me, Kobe saying what he said yesterday is just Kobe being candid and matter of fact about it. But the clap back from Shaq says he was a bit offended. And if you Kobe, you had to know Shaq would be offended. Which means saying it, you just didn't care. Probably not a big deal. Knowing Shaq, he'll brush it off, laugh it off, talk about its marketing, just another brilliant move on his part. And Kobe was in on it. Knowing Shaq, he'll come up with some cockamamie story like that. But it ain't that simple. Now, let me be the first to say, here's what I love about Kobe. No matter what the fallout is, Kobe ain't gonna give a damn. He said what he said, he meant what he meant, period. Period. Kobe ain't trying to assuage anybody's concern. He ain't trying to gloss over it and smooth the edges. He ain't trying to do none of that. That ain't Kobe. My only point is, I thought we were past all of this. I will say this, too. I don't think Kobe and Shaq together would have had 12 rings. They might have had 7, but not 12. I don't believe that. I just don't believe that. I don't see that at all. I think they might have had 2 more titles together. 5 or 6, maybe, actually. They might have had 2 more titles together. Remember, Shaq went to Miami. Let's not forget the Dallas Mavericks, who lost to the Miami Heat at the time when Dwayne Wade came onto the scene and just let everybody know, I'm that dude. I'm that dude. I'm that future Hall of Famer. There's MJ, there's Kobe, and there's me. That's what Dwayne Wade said when he averaged about 37 in the final 4 games against the Dallas Mavericks. What a monster performance. But if you recall, and you talked to some Dallas Mavericks at that time, their belief was they didn't lose the series because of Shaq. They lost it because of Alonzo Mourning. He was a terror defensively. Shaq could get his points and dunk on anybody. He could do a whole bunch of things. The dream shake, he had that to his game too. But Alonzo Mourning was that nightmare for the Dallas Mavericks on the offensive side of the ball because he was so surreal defensively. That's what they would tell you. So Shaq with Kobe, 12 rings, hell no. 7 rings, probably not. 6 rings, maybe. 5 rings, definitely, together. But that's the interesting thing about Kobe, and that's the foresight that he deserves because, again, if I had to pick fair or foul, I would use the word foul for him bringing that stuff up. But I will tell you, he looks kind of brilliant that Shaq was gone and he ultimately ended up going back to 3 straight NBA finals and winning back-to-back championships in '09 and '10 because we talk about Kobe differently. Had Kobe won, and I'll ask you, the Kobe fans everywhere, the basketball fans everywhere, particularly the Los Angelians everywhere, I'd ask you this simple question. If Kobe Bryant, if as a fan of Kobe Bryant, rather, what do you prefer? The 5 rings that he has, the way that he had them, or 6, 7, 8 rings with Shaquille O'Neal the whole time? What do you think would have been best for his legacy? Because we know what Kobe's answer is. What's yours? 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to Stephen A. ESPN Radio, ESPN News. And listen, as far as Shaq goes, did Shaq work as hard as Kobe? Hell no. Did Shaq try to get over at times? Sure. Was Shaq honest about that fact because he knew he had Kobe so he could slack off a little bit, which infuriated Kobe, which they both admitted during their one-on-one interview with each other? Absolutely. All of that stuff is true. But how many of us are walking around 350 pounds? We walking around 350 pounds, man. What are we supposed to think? What are we supposed to feel? I mean, me gobbling up 350 pounds, 3 Big Macs. If I'm 350 pounds, if it's me, I'm walking around looking pregnant. Pot belly and all of that stuff. If I'm 350 pounds, 3 Big Macs might be the equivalent of a Tic Tac. Me, Shaq, 350 pounds. So I don't think we can judge it like it's normal people sucking up Big Macs. It's Shaq. He's 350 pounds. That's all I'm saying. 888-SAY-ESPN. It's 888-729-3776. You're listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. That's one topic I wanted to get into. The other is Antonio Brown. Because Big Ben Roethlisberger, in this interview with NBC's Michelle Tafoya, talked about how he tried to make amends and how he had regrets about how he may have handled certain situations with Antonio Brown, that he wishes him nothing but the best, et cetera, et cetera. Antonio Brown claps back at him and says, "Never friends, just trying to get my ends. Shut up already." Disrespectful, sure. Ben Roethlisberger might deserve it to some degree, but do I think this makes Big Ben Roethlisberger look worse than Antonio Brown? Hell no. I think it makes Antonio Brown look worse. Once again, you're talking. Be quiet. Ben Roethlisberger is not your teammate anymore. You're no longer a Pittsburgh Steeler any longer. You got your $30 million from the Oakland Raiders. You seem fixated on Ben like Ben did you wrong. Would you have gotten your $30 million if it wasn't for Big Ben Roethlisberger? I don't think so. Would you have gotten the exorbitant contract you got years ago before Big Ben Roethlisberger? I don't think so. Let's please, let's keep in mind. In no way am I absolving Ben Roethlisberger from his role in anything pertaining to Antonio Brown. Ben Roethlisberger talked a little bit too much. He didn't need to talk so much on that weekly radio show. He certainly didn't need to insult Antonio Brown the way that he did. He didn't need to call out Antonio Brown after he had thrown an interception to a defensive tackle on the goal line against the Denver Broncos. Talking about Antonio Brown not running the right route. He shouldn't have said, "I should have thrown the ball to Juju Smith-Schuster all day long." You can't say stuff like that. You can't do that. They're both at fault. I'm not absolving Ben Roethlisberger from anything. But Ben Roethlisberger is not continuing to stir, foment, or escalate this controversy between him and Big Ben and Antonio Brown. It's Antonio Brown who's doing this. And oh, by the way, when you make a statement, never friends, it's about my ends. I'm sorry, ladies and gentlemen, that's an issue of trust. Because that's not the impression Antonio Brown gave in the past when he was seen on the sideline hugging Ben Roethlisberger. That's not the impression he gave when he called Ben Roethlisberger, when he posted 4 different pictures of him and Big Ben Roethlisberger when they were asking who his best friend was. That's not what was going on at that particular moment in time. And if you want to sit up there and make a statement like that on Twitter, which you ultimately removed that tweet, but that's after you disseminated it to millions. Here's the bottom line, Antonio Brown. You're basically saying you pretended to be friends. You pretended to be cool because you was trying to get paid. That's fine. That's reasonable. That happens in the workplace every day. But here's the flip side to all of that. How can you be trusted? Now, it may not matter because at the end of the day, we work with people every day we don't particularly like working with, we don't particularly want to work with, and we just suck it up and do our jobs. That's what we get paid to do. That's what we do. Now, we'd probably be better if we enjoyed who we were working with. We'd probably be better if we enjoyed coming to work every day. No question about that. But the bottom line is, if you're a professional, you're going to do your job. The flip side to it is that when you work in close quarters with one another, you cultivate relationships. You personalize things. You vibe with one another in a fashion that provokes and evokes personal conversations with one another. And with Antonio Brown going after Big Ben Roethlisberger this way, going after Juju Smith-Schuster the way that he did, going after Ryan Clark, our colleague here at ESPN, his former teammate, the way that he did, even though a legitimate argument could be made that those two were never friends. The bottom line is to now come back to going after Big Ben Roethlisberger the way that he did. Well, damn it, Antonio Brown, who's next? Could it be one of your teammates? It's a rhetorical question. I'm being facetious. I'm simply pointing out how somebody could think based on his actions. It's something to think about. And I think it makes him look worse than better. 888-SAY-ESPN. That's 888-729-3776. You are listening live to the Stephen A. Smith Show, ESPN Radio, ESPN News. That was Straight Talk Wild.